Okay. So, welcome to the next session. You remember in the last session we talked about how to assess the training needs. Okay. So, once the training need is identified and you know that what kind of people are there who needs training and what are the different kind of trainings that you have to give to the people, so that they become competent enough. Now, once this job is done, next stage we are going to basically develop a strategy for the training program. Okay. Because if you do not have a training strategy or HRD strategy for a training program, it may not be successful, and this strategy has to be done once the needs are identified. For example, the strategy could be related to who needs to be trained. So, you go for prioritizing training needs, in what area you are going to give them first training. Then the strategy could be related to design and development of the training program, that how we are going to design and develop a training program. So, the strategy could be related to different things, and that is what we are going to discuss it here, that what could be the different strategies. And for in order to see that you are going to do these strategies, you need to complete the first stage, that is the need assessment stage. So, once need assessment is done, you know where training is needed, what kind of training is required, who needs to be trained, and under what conditions people need to be trained. Then you move to the next stage, that is what we call the training strategy. Now, when I am talking about training strategy, basically we have to see that yes, if you do not have a strategy for a particular activity, the chances or likelihood of success is very less. Now, the idea of having a training strategy is that okay, how much training is to be given, whether it is going to be related to the current job or the future jobs, okay, whether you are going for a customized training or you need to develop a training program for that purpose, right. Who needs to be trained, individuals or groups, okay, or so all kind of questions come up, and in order to have a training strategy, we probably will solve your problems related to these things. How much training is to be given, who needs to be training, whether you are going to outsource it or whether you are going to develop it, whether you are going to have a customized training program, right, or whether you need to develop a specific training program for a particular set of people, right. So, these kind of questions need to be answered, and that is a part of what you call a training strategy. Now, when you look at HRD or training strategy, okay, now the thing is that you need to plan and systematically administer a particular training. Okay. Otherwise, what will happen? If you are not proactive, you become reactive. Suppose there is a requirement and then you decide about conducting a training program to the people. It is not going to be successful. So, you need to be more proactive, so that well in advance you are going to continue this process or conduct this process to systematically plan and administer a training program, so that people are trained on a continuous basis, right, based on the environment, based upon the strategy, so that you are more successful, right. And then you have to see that the training function is given its due importance compared to other practices in the organization, because you know that training is also related to other things, maybe compensation, maybe reward, maybe training and say careers. So, how training is linked with other functions of the organization, right. So, for that training strategy would be required. Now, if you look at the strategic training and development process, as I told you, first of all what you do, you go for identifying your business strategy, right, what are your mission, values and goals for which you are going to work, and this business strategy is an outcome of the environmental analysis. So, once this business strategy is identified and you are able to identify what goals and objectives you have, what is your mission and these kind of things, then you are going to link it with your strategic training and development objectives. It means you have to see that what are the different kind of learning activities that you want to plan, different areas. So, that is what I mean by diversifying the learning portfolio. Okay. And whether it is for improving the customer services, whether it is for something else, or whether you want to, and how you are going to see that people learn better and faster, right. You have to see that how you are going to capture and share knowledge that is being learned by the people, so that they are able to transfer it, right. So, this is a part of strategic training and development activities, because if that is taken care, probably you will be in a better position to see that training and development activities are planned well. Now, how are you going to do it? Whether you are going to use internet, web based training, online training, okay. Whether you want everybody to attend the training program, whether you have specific websites, blogs, portals, forums for knowledge sharing or not, right, and how it is going to help you to provide better customer services training, right. So, all these training and development activities are a part of the strategy. So, you have to decide whether it is going to, what kind of training it is going to be, who is going to do it, what kind of say whether it is going to be outsourced, whether it is going to be developed in house, okay, who will be the trainers, okay, and then how we are going to measure it in terms of identifying the value of the training, okay, in terms of whether there is an improvement in the learning or performance, or there could be other indicators. For example, for a customer service executive, if the number of complaints goes down, then you can say yes, learning has helped him to provide better customer services, right, or it has reduced turnovers, okay, and people are more happy and satisfied by doing the job. So, there could be various outcomes of the training process. So, now if you look at the strategic and training and development process, you can say that yes, you have to proactively think about it, then you have to see how you are going to do it and in what way you are going to evaluate the training program. So, this entire framework tells you about the strategic training development process. Now, moving further, if you look at the design part, so it is very, very important that how we are going to design the training program, okay, and that is where you are going to develop a strategy, right. So, when you are going to design a training program, the first important thing that it has to be taken in a project mode. So, you have to see that whether infrastructure support, management support, commitment, resources in terms of budget or finances are available, right. You have already done that what kind of instructions would be used, okay. What are the goals or objectives of the learning, okay. What kind of knowledge and skill base is going to be there, which is going to be changed, right. What are the performance objectives of a learning program, right. How are going to assess people after the training, right. What would the various sequence of the training in terms of content, learning and these kind of things, okay. So, what kind of, how are going to train, what would be your instructional strategy, whether you are going to give lectures, whether you are going to provide other kind of methods for training, right. So, all this is a part of what you call design and development part, and that is what we are going to discuss now, because designing of a training program is very, very important. If you do not design it effectively, that training may not succeed as expected. Now, if you look at this, first of all we look at the scenario of the training, in what kind of environment you are going to provide training, right. And if you look at the scenario of the training in general, there could be 3 different kind of scenarios, right, because your program strategy depends upon what kind of environment you are going to have internally and externally. Internal work environment, as I told you, structure, support, leadership, culture, right. External environment, economic, political, cultural, social, technical, legal. So, they are going to talk about the scenario that is going to be there, and accordingly you decide your goals and objectives, which leads to see that what is the requirement of the organization, and accordingly you decide what kind of HRD intervention would be required, right. And that is what I mean by scenario of the training analysis, right. So, you have to see that based upon a particular scenario, you are able to identify what kind of content would be provided in a program, right, to the learners in a given condition, identified condition, and that condition comes from the external environment in terms of structure, culture, support, leadership, right. Now, another important issue is that you have to see that how you can make your instruction more effective, efficient, appealing and cost effective, because training, investment in a training is a cost, right. So, you have to reduce it, and accordingly you have to see that it is cost effective, and not only cost effective, but you also need to ensure that people are able to learn and they are able to transfer their knowledge on the job and become more efficient, right. So, accordingly you have to select an appropriate instruction process or methodology for training, so that it is good for the people to learn. Now, so this involves what? Identifying a program strategy and also the kind of instructions that is to be used, right. And when we are talking about training strategy, both identifying the strategy for the program and instruction method is very, very important or equally important. Now, if you look at the scenario, we will discuss some of the scenarios which is very, very important, right. There could be the way things are changing in the environment will have its impact on the training program strategy, right. Now, there are 3 kind of changes which is happening. First, level of change, where there is a slight change, or there could be a moderate change, or there could be extreme changes. What I mean to say by slight, moderate and extreme changes is the changes that is happening in the external and internal environment of the organization, or their moderate changes or the extreme changes. Now, depending upon the kind of scenario, your training strategy would be different, or the way you are going to conduct your training is going to be different, right. So, we need to understand these kind of scenarios, which are very important, right, because it is based on the kind of technology that you are using, okay, what kind of ICT you are going to use, okay, and the input is coming from cognitive sciences, the behavioral sciences, biotechnology, pharmacology, even the economy. So, these are going to provide you system for change, whether the system is going to have a slight change scenario or moderate change scenario or extreme change scenario. And based on this analysis, we have to see that what these scenarios are actually. Now, if you look at the slight change scenario, what happens in slight change scenario? There is not much change. It means few significant changes are happening in the environment. Okay. So, which you are going to apply in a training, instruction and learning. Now, if few significant changes are happening, then what will happen? It means that you continue with your current practices of design, development and evaluation of the training program, right. You do not need to make much changes there. It means the external environment and internal environment has not changed much. So, you do not need to do with anything else, because the way you have been doing a conducting training program, you should continue with that one, right. The only change that is happening is the electronic technology or information technology, which is associated with the communication. That is how we are going to deliver the training program, right. So, that is only change which is going to affect the way you are going to design and develop a training program, right. So, in a slight change in the scenario, what actually happens? Basically, it is a case of what you call a minimum change in training design, right, not much changes. So, moving to the second, that is moderate changes, right. In a moderate change scenario, what happens? Significant changes are happening in all kind of industries and also changes in the cognitive sciences or brain sciences. It means the changes that is happening in the say pharmaceutical technology or brain sciences and cognitive sciences will have its impact on the way the training program is to be designed and developed. Because if you look at the cognitive sciences, that brain sciences, they are in a position to tell you about the functions of the brain and how the brain is going to function in terms of capturing and sharing knowledge, right. So, these kind of information will have its impact when you are going to design and develop a training program for better receptivity of the people, right, and that is where the advances in technology in these areas is going to be there, right. Like pharmaceutical sciences can help you to see that how it is going to help you to enhance the rate and capacity of the brain to acquire, retain, recall information. You know that there are memory drugs which are available today, okay, and these drugs basically helps you to recall information in a better way. Now, if these kind of drugs are used, probably it is going to influence the learning process of the people, right. Similarly, the changes in the brain science, the advances in the brain sciences are also very important, or information communication technology, which has entirely changed the way the people communicate. The instructional methodology is being used today. You know, the computer based technology has come up, where you are going to be trained using a computer assisted technology, which is going to be self paced or what you call self directed learning. We will talk about these things at a later stage. So, these changes are going to influence your training strategy. It means that the way you are going to design and develop your training program. Similarly, you will also find that how it is going to impact the HR department, because HR department who is going to design and develop training program has to be influenced by this communication technology, has to be influenced by the pharmaceutical sciences, has to be influenced by the cognitive sciences advances, and accordingly they are going to design and develop program for effective learning, right. Now, moving from a moderate change scenario to extreme change scenario, what happens in extreme change scenario? Where there is a lot of changes, significant changes are happening, especially in the field of technology and psychology, okay, which has a major input or contribution to the instructional system and learning systems, right. If you look at this process, you know that knowledge management has become very important. So, knowledge management basically which talks about capturing tacit knowledge, transforming them into explicit knowledge, archiving them for the use of the people in the organization. So, this knowledge management has become a big business today, where you are going to buy, sell all kind of knowledge. Okay. It become a humanless commodity, because it is archived and there is no human intervention. Once the knowledge is captured, you can do anything with that, and it can be used by the people to perform their job effectively, right. So, knowledge management is one area where things have changed. Then another area is neuroplasticity. Okay. That is the ability of the brain to restructure and rewire itself. Is it possible to restructure the brain or rewire the brain? Yes. Now, these internal external influences of the environment have an unintended effect on the mind of the people. And the mind of the people is wired accordingly, it is going to restructure itself, so that it is better able to adapt to the changes that is happening in the environment. If you remember, we talk about survival of the fittest or the evolution of the human being, that itself basically talks about neuroplasticity. That is where the people are able to restructure and rewire themselves to cope up the challenges of the external and internal environment, right. So, if there are changes that is happening in the environment, whether people have been able to restructure themselves or can they rewire themselves for better effective learning and training. So, these are the issues that has come to the fore today. Similarly, you will also find that yes, you are going to see the effect of these psychological factors on knowledge management when it comes to design and delivery of the training program, because today you are using communication technology, you are going to use systems which are highly simulated, because a lot of trainings are given in a simulation mode all today. And the idea is that you are going to, if you are going to use these kind of systems in your design, probably it is going to not only improve the system, but also it is going to make your training more effectively. So, in extreme change scenario, you have to see that how you are going to design and develop a training program, which is going to help people to perform better. Now, after discussing this kind of thing, I mean the different kind of scenarios, we have to see that how things have changed. Now, you know that people can engage anywhere in real time technology, support but learning process are visually everywhere, or they can learn from anywhere, anytime learning, anywhere learning. Okay, these kind of concepts are coming up, and that is possible because of the technology, and that is going to decide the fate of design and development process, so far as any learning activity is concerned. So, these are the changes that is happening, and you must keep in mind this scenario when you are going to design and develop a training program. Now, coming to design and development of training program, you have to see what are the different things that is done. You remember, we talked about the ADDIE model. ADDIE stands for analysis, design, development, implement and evaluation, right. These are the 5 different phases of a training program. We have already covered about the first phase, that is analysis phase. Now, we are talking about the design and development phase. So, analysis phase has to be evaluated to see that the extent to which you have been able to do this job effectively to properly identify the need of the people. Now, when it comes to design and development, the same analogy comes out, that yes, you should be able to evaluate your design and development process for its effectiveness. Training evaluation for improving quality and performance does not mean that you are going to only see the end result of the training in terms of change in the performance or behavior, but you have to start evaluating starting with the first phase itself, the analysis phase, and then you move to the design and development phase, and then you implement, and finally, you are going to go for integrated evaluation to see that all phases have been worked out effectively, so that you are able to provide better quality, better delivery, and there is an improvement in the behavior and the performance, provided there is support from the management, right. So, this ADDIE model is very important, because this is what actually the HRD process model is, because if you look at the HRD process model and the ADDIE model, there is not much difference. Okay. Analysis is the first part, assessment of the need, then moving to the next stage, that is we are going to talk about the design part, and in design part what happens? It is related, design development part related to the second part, and then implementation, the method that you are going to use for conducting the training program, and finally comes to the evaluation. Evaluation, it means that how you are going to evaluate the training program. Now, if you look at this AD model or the HRD process model, this HRD process model, right. Here you talk about assessment of the need, then design and development, then implementation and then evaluation. Now, if you look at this and this AD model, it is more or less same, because assessment relates to this one, design and development relates to this one, implementation relates to this one and evaluation relates to this one, right. And when you are going to identify a training strategy, you are going to not only be concerned with one particular stage, but with all these stages, whether it is assessment, whether it is design and development, whether it is implementation or it is evaluation. You remember in the first stage when we were talking about assessment, we say that yes, we are going for person, organization and task analysis in order to identify the training needs. Okay. And once training needs are identified, you know who should be trained, areas where the people need to be trained, these two are identified. Then you go for design phase, and that is where you develop your training strategy. Okay. And this basically, if you are proactive, then you have to see this and this training strategy results in a better design, right. If you are properly designed, then you move to the next stage, that implement, and that is where we talk about the method, right. When I am talking about the method, that is how we are going to conduct method, which method you are going to use for giving training, right. And it depends upon what is your need. If you simply want to pass on the information, you can go for lecture, but suppose you want to train a pilot, then you go for simulated exercises, because that is where you need to see that the person is able to do his job without any error, right, because that is the requirement. So, the selection of the method depends upon what? The training needs. The design of the program also depends upon the area where the people is to be trained and who is to be trained. So, all these are interconnected, and then finally, we move to the next part, that is evaluation. Now, the thing is, if you remember in the training strategy, we started with what we call business strategy, then move to training strategy, then move to training and development activities, and finally, we move to evaluation. So, this is the overall strategy of the training design. Now, if you look at this part and this part, you can see that this AD model talks about everything, the process model and the evaluation part. Now, if you look at this figure, it would be clear to you that all of them are integrated, whether we are talking about the analysis, that is the assessment of the training needs, whether we are talking about the design and how to design a training program, okay. Then how we are going to develop the program, and when we are talking about the development of the training program, means what does it contain, right, in terms of what is the objective of a training program, what is the time duration, what is the content. Okay. So, all this needs to be developed, because any training program is a very structured activity. So, development of a training program is very critical for its success, and once training program is developed, and that is where you decide about how to provide training, that is implement the program, that is where you are going to select the trainer, right, and if the trainer is not available, then you have to find out the subject matter experts, right. All kind of things is a part of the implementation, and then ultimately you provide training depending upon the requirement of the trainees. So, once implementation is done, then you again move to the next stage. Why you are going to move to the next stage again? Because that is where you are going to say whether your training needs are fulfilled or not. right. So, it is a cyclical in nature, because once you analyze the training, you design and develop a training program, you implement it, and then moving to the same function, that is analysis, because analysis tells you whether there is a gap in the performance or not, right. So, once this is done, your this process is complete. But if you look at this sphere, you will find 4 different things, and these 4 different things include the administration. The administration basically is related to how the training is conducted, the way the training is conducted, that is the process of doing everything, right. Process of analysis, process of design, process of development, and process of this, right. So, this design and development part, if you look at this part, this actually is related to how we are going to do it, right. This is related to the delivery, and that is where you need the support. When it comes to design, you need support, because that is where you need support from the top management in order to identify the business or corporate strategy. Similarly, you also need to see whether the support is available in terms of internal work environment, that is structure, system, process, culture, leadership, and internal organizational work environment or climate, what you call. So, these factors are kept in while designing a training program, because they might provide you a constraint. So, you have to see that there are no barriers for this. And now, what is the objective of the management? The objective of the management is improvement in the behavior and the performance, and also bring about a quality. Now, there are 2 things, quality of what? So, when we are talking about improvement, it is related to improvement in behavior and performance. When we are talking about quality, it means the quality of the training program in terms of its effectiveness, and this comes out of the evaluation, right. So, these 2 things are to be measured when it comes to evaluation, and this is very important. This evaluation part is very important, because if you do not evaluate, you will not be able to identify these 2. In most cases, it is not done, and that is why if you look at the HRD process model, okay, and this ADDIE model, and if you do look at this model, it appears to be what you call a extension of this ADDIE model part 1. Okay. So, by this model, what I am trying to tell you, what are the various systems that has to function, okay, and what is expected from a HRD process model in terms of design and development part, so that when you are going to design a strategy for the training program, you make sure that it is going to be very, very successful. Thank you very much.